Video games over the years have become one of the most popular forms of entertainment, especially for children. In turn, it led to the start of MMOs ranging from many genres such as action, fantasy, horror, and more. When it comes to children video games and MMOs, however, they vary from TV show franchises, toys, education, and for this topic especially, animals. Horse games that further lead into the emergence of the MMO, Star Stable Online. Throughout this docuseries, each episode will be talking about the three main branches when it comes to this game. The game itself, the company, and the community. More specifically, we'll be talking about its 10-year evolution into the game's current state today. As somebody that's now played this game for 9 years, I think it's honestly just time to speak the truth about what this game really is. Before I start, for those of you who are new, who either just came from the trailer, promotion by other people, thank you by the way, or you somehow did a hop, skip, and a jump and landed here. Hi, welcome. I'm gonna go by Moon here. I just want to say thank you for the amount of support y'all put into waiting for this doc to come out. I also want to give a huge thanks to the YouTubers and influencers for letting me use their footage, posts, or audio, especially for this video. Plus, I want to give thanks for Rao, not only for spreading word of this doc, but also helping with the format of this docu-series, because honestly, if I was going to keep doing what I was doing earlier, it probably would have been worse. I would also like to put a disclaimer here. In some of these sections, I will get a little bit heated here and there, so bear in mind, it comes from how passionate I am about this game, as well as many others shown in this video. Without further ado, let's dive into our first episode, the game. So, to give a little background of what Star Stable is for those of you who don't know, Star Stable Online is a fantasy horse magical adventure MMO that was in development in 2007. This is not an RPG. It ain't even close to an RPG. This ain't Kingdom Hearts. It ain't even close to that. By October 2011, in Stockholm, Sweden, SSO was released, and later, June 2012, it was released worldwide. To give more context, they're based off the continuation of another PC game series called Starshine Legacy, with returning characters and similar concepts from the other PC game series Star Academy and Star Stable Seasons. The person who created SSO was by a man of the name Frederick Gunnarsson. This MMO would then become the top horse game MMO with over 10 million players. However, there was more than what meets the eye as the years progressed. To go in further, I'm going to break it down to time periods of this game to understand its current state. The beginning of 2011 to 2012 is what I believe to be the game's golden age, because this is when the game was at its prime in my opinion. However, there were some minor issues that potentially started its transition into each period. For each year, I will be comparing the number of horses released as well as comparisons of updates that are actual content, filler, or horses. This was mainly inspired by Just Another Pixels video where she went through how many horse updates were released throughout the years. This is going to be a more in-depth version since we're comparing more than just horses. So I want you all to pay attention to how many horses are released in each time frame within the time period. So, 2011 to 2012, the game was fresh, and at the time, you could only ride your starter horse, and back then, the models were different in terms of design. Golden Hills Valley was new, your homestead was just a closet, Quest for booming, only championship race that existed was Moorland, lifetime membership came in the late fall, early winter of 2012, holiday events started, Petz came into the game that didn't yeet out of your saddlebag like a Pokemon, and for its first year, this was its start. By 2013 to 2014, SSO continued its release of multiple quests and later introduced the first generation of horses as well as Generation 1.5 horses that you could buy with the lovely cash currency or earned weekly with lifetime called Star Coins. Double Star Coin deals were also new, as well as new features in the game, such as physically going into your stable, collect the stars, more events, shirts from a design competition, more championships at different areas. Don't like the shitty braids your horse came with? Go to a horse hairstylist. They cost 18 Star Coins. Global chat emotes, painful fishing, badass badass areas at the time, a traveling horse market, actual equestrian people events. Don't want to keep caring for your 10 horses? Get some stable care, 7 star coins each day. Want to release your inner nerd? Do some archaeology. A horse trainer, if you're too lazy, new clothing items, and its main storyline was actually popping off. Now to look at the amount of horses in total combined, 2013 to 2014 had 73 horses released. However, if we break them up, 2013 had 42 and 2014 had 31. With these numbers, they were still balanced with the number of content updates, but some that had even horses released with actual content. Now, it was 2015-2016, which was the time frame of the second generation of horses that could actually blink, with some Gen 1s released here and there as well as the birth of limited edition magical horses that changed color depending on if it was in a rural area or urban area, called Jorvik wild horses. But today, they're now called the Nixies, which more on that later. This was also the time where the first horses that could do a special gait were the Icelandics with their Tolt, and the Lipizanians with the special move called the Levad by hitting spacebar while standing still. Traditional events still continue with the addition of Fashion Week, a mall with the bus, continuation of quests, limited edition seals on an iceberg, new events, new areas, revamps were made to certain characters, textures, and areas. We have a city to go to now, and Shows came to the game. 2015 had 32 horses released, and 2016 had 39 horses released. Finally, 2017 was the last year of the Golden Age, with SSL releasing a horse app, which is basically a horse carrying app from full to adulthood to then transfer to SSL. An ambassador program started with influencers here and there. More areas involved with quests, race-specific races emerged, more magical horses. Want to be a wild horse? Just go to the options instead of back in the day with having to delete files to do it. Theater.
Oh, I'm hurt. Oh, my neck.
Snow was gone, sadly. So they put it all in an area event just to make you feel better. And a special event with spirit riding free was a thing. However, the only bad things that happened here was the new camera angle and map contest being updated, which after enough voices, you could adjust the bitches now. Characters remodeled from the giraffe next to honey, I just struck my kid's neck with a run that looks like I can't run a mile, which was also changed a little after a huge uproar. And lastly, the Generation 2 Abravians receiving slight critique on their legs, which named them as spider legs at the time. With this year, the total of horses released, including the limited edition horses, were a total of 40 horses. This concludes the Golden Age, and overall, the numbers with actual content updates were balanced for a game pushing out updates every Wednesday. However, from here on out, this is where the slow downfall starts to occur. Now, I'm calling this the Tyranny Age because this is where we're going to start to see a shift in focus as well as cracks of issues coming out from within. At first, it was still relatively normal with more side quests being engaging, new attack, new features, another new area, the birth of Generation 3 horses, some successful remodels, photo mode, new and reoccurring events with slight changes to incorporate non-Star Rider players, but the main story was at a standstill until early 2019 with Saving On, which in my opinion was the main quest that had the most effort into being a really good main quest. However, this is when things started getting shitty. The chat filter was worse with uncontrollable chat bans, the old Generation 1.5 fjords were leaving with the Coulters ultimately being replaced by the Gen 3 fjords. However, it got a lot of critique on its tail looking like bird poop, which after a long ass time with the poll, they fixed the tails. Buggy Gen 3 horses were coming out, some horse coats were mirrored. SL created a fictional Vivo record label. Unsuccessful remodels from mixed feedback on the cartoony and some shitty textures were models of certain characters in the game. What helped with getting used to the remodels of characters or areas was because they still had familiarity of, hey, this is an area I started when I was little. Now, I like to point out that with Gen 3 horses, specifically in 2019, was the start of back-to-back horse breeds coming out that were hot to the point of where people want to get all of them. Now let's look at those horses release numbers, shall we? 2018 had released 45 horses. However, if we look at 2019 had a total, and I quote, 66 horses. Which with horse updates slowly starting to surpass the number of content updates. Notice the huge jump in numbers? Well, you're about to see higher numbers from here on out. Now, in 2020 and today's age, it's the Solus age. And oh boy, do we got some shit right here. I think we can all agree that 2020 for everyone was probably one of, if not the worst year of their life. I know for me in particular, this was a shitty year. Despite the pandemic, video games and MMOs were booming, including SSO due to more people being indoors because of it. So, they would have more shit to do now, right? Well, let's take a look. Last year and now, there are a shit ton, and I mean a shit ton of horses. There wasn't much content, and if you've done everything, there's no endgame. The only things that came out were things that kept you busy, such as the Catherine's Memories collection side quest line thingy, relating to the main storyline here and there, Bear's crafting, Bonnie's trash collecting simulator, Druid training, and an empty Wildwood split up to seem like there's something after the quest, when there's only reputation for clothes and new settlements, aka add a ranch in an already existing area and events with nothing new to do. Horses were now a constant thing you see more frequently every month, with even limited edition and magical horses being thrown into the mixture, making it harder for people to save with their weekly allowance of 100 star coins. This is also where we start to see some shitty horse breeds, from recycled animations to badly designed models and more. Depressing year, however. Oh lord. We got one main story quest line.
Let me just go in the bush and weep. Let me just go in the bush and weep. I just have to go in the bush and weep. Really. I don't understand.
Y'all heard me. One. Which, more on that later. A few side quests, a shit ton of filler updates of either just clothes or races, and features that were either unnecessarily taken out or not really changed. In total of 2020, there were an average of 68 to 69 horses released. Right now, in 2020, there's a total of 79 horses released into the game, including magical horses that came back and new releases. So now that we've gone through each time period, let's discuss the issues with this game. So now that we have gone over the timeline of SSO, let's look at the issues with the game. Other episodes will also get to touch more on other issues that surround SSO, so for those of you who are aware of these issues that surround more than just the game, don't worry, they're going to be talked about in episode 2 or 3. Some issues that we'll be talking about will have its own section due to how I believe that this is something that's gotta be talked about by itself. The issues we'll be discussing today are unbalanced updates, lack of content, bugs, half-baked breeds, expensive in-game prices, unnecessary functions, and taking out of functions. Let's start with unbalanced updates. As I stated earlier, since horse updates have surpassed actual content, the game just became a horse buying simulator and doing races till it maxes at 15. Let's give you a visual example. SSO releases the new Arabian, so you decide, hey, I'm gonna get the dapple gray one. So you buy the horse, and within 3 days, you max the horse to level 15, and you ride it for at least a couple of weeks or so. After a while, you then hear about how SSO is releasing the updated American paint horse. So, you go buy one, leaving that Arabian to rot in your stable, catching up dust as you buy more horses upon horses in the cycle of buying a horse, training it, and buying another one. Now, don't get me wrong, I love horses, they're my favorite animal, but when it comes to playing games, especially MMOs, there's gotta be stuff to do in the game. There's already a clear imbalance of content versus horse updates, and it clearly shows what SSO focuses on because it's more short-term than long-term, meaning in the short term, they can get a lot of money from people buying horses and star coins, but in the long term, you're hurting your player base.
Now this is absolutely understandable, seeing as the video shows that SSO's focus is on horses and not on the game or the quests, because horses bring in revenue, quests and gameplay do not. Something a lot of players in the community have been feeling and have been concerned about for a very long time. Despite the fact that SSO's promise is there were 2 teams, it just kind of shows that even if there are, the quest team simply doesn't rate as high as the horse team, and their ideas to better the game have been tossed aside in favor of making more money.
Which segues into my next point, lack of content. Most people in the game have finished all their reputation quests, crafting, collections, archaeology, actual quests, fishing, and druid training. The purpose of some of these are supposed to act more of keeping the player busy than keeping the players entertained. Same goes for actual training. There's a reason why there's people who don't like training because it just feels like a chore. Same with reputation, because they purposely give you a small amount of reputation points to last for a longer period before the next quest to act like you're doing something nice. Bonnie's trash collecting simulator with building up the horse machine can be finished within a day if you actually really work at it, because of how frequent the trash comes around in urban areas. The purpose of druid training to get the free horse, the Rune Runner, also ends up feeling like a chore, leading to people giving up on it or taking even longer. For a game revolving around learning different magic circles, why haven't we actually used the magic we've learned to fight shit? And no, fighting is not getting orbs and lunging your horse at it. I'm talking actual combat. Not to mention how in cutscenes where we actually do something, we have no control over it, and it can sometimes come off as anticlimactic or just straight up, I wish we could do that ourselves. The rewards in this game vary from clothes or Jorvik shillings, the in-game currency. Quests also still get affected if you look at the ones released this year. The one main story quest we got lasted roughly a little under an hour or so. Maya's horse quest had a day blocker for one since 2019. Finally, the Wildwoods quest involving the spy master and his missing servant, actual person that's a spy. For this one, I decided to actually time it since people have said it was really short. Y'all, with not using the transport and reading the dialogue and getting stuck in this broken ass tree branch, that bitch took me 22 minutes. On top of that, with all of these quests, we just really did a bunch of dialogue, with some making me feel like I'm watching toddlers in preschool argue over who broke their Pandorian Rubik's Cube, running from point A to B as a messenger and doing repeated actions from dailies or previous side quests. I honestly feel like they incorporate more ways to get star coins besides the actually weekly allowance. It would actually get people to log on, especially if it's with the actual competitions of writing disciplines or the championships. Same goes with having more activities to do than having players and clubs come up with something to do besides role-playing or think up of a minigame. As for quests, they need to start putting more love into them instead of just whipping up one to say you released a quest and you have content. Back then, quests were given a lot of tender love and care. Right now, they've been given the neglect of a puppy in a shelter.
How is it that we literally spent a year fighting for a story quest and 17 plus, 20 plus horses were released? We lost Galentine's, we lost St. Patrick's Day, we lost April Fools because they weren't something that were important to them. They weren't something that they could get money off of. And it's really sad.
Now we're gonna talk about the bugs. Now you're probably wondering, but isn't this with any game? Yes. But how would you like to have bugs that break the game completely or bugs that take a long ass time to actually get fixed? In SSO, we have bugs such as the dismount dance, horses being sucked into the matrix, Rapunzel hair, reins elongating across the screen, falling through the floor, the reins going into the neck, treadmill running, road skating, glitched horse part, glitched out textures, can't pick up your shit, imposter Among Us bug, I'm levitating, Lightning McQueen, buggy NPCs, quest not working, lagging / crashing despite having a high-end PC, and many more. Actual game-breaking bugs that have occurred, such as the Fallout 76 by yourself edition, financial debt, taking money out of your account despite having lifetime membership, not being able to log on, missing horses, missing star coins, missing items, and of course the possibility of being hacked. Events aren't safe either, because this year's Halloween and Christmas was the buggiest I have ever seen those events, because Halloween was when the dismount dance bug was born, from the depths of neglectfulness. Now you could go tell SSO these issues, right? Well, you sort of can, but good luck in actually getting your game fixed.
Here is SSO's response when your account has been hacked. Thank you for contacting Star Stable. Only people with access to your account can do this. Our database is very secure and has not been compromised. Normally, people could only get into your account if you have shared your credentials. Your credentials are easy to guess. You are using a shared computer where anyone can easily access your account. To fix this and prevent anyone from accessing your account again, they tell you how to change your password. Our tech team works very hard to keep your account safe by encrypting our data banks, for example. Therefore, Star Stable is not responsible for items, horses, or star coins that you lose resulting from sharing or losing your account information. Additionally, keep in mind that it's against the Star Stable rules to share your account information with other people. And breaking the rules can get you back from the game. Make sure you keep your password secret and stay extra safe online.
SSO will more than likely have you do things you've already tried, or blame it on your Wi-Fi, blame for your reckless spending, blame for your purchases you didn't even buy, blame for your account. Can you see the trend here? SSO basically assumes even if you get hacked that it's your fault for giving out your password or going to buy something when that's not the case. How do you know that somebody gave out their password? This could literally be caused from anything. Some bugs ended up fixing themselves and some take weeks or even months to get things resolved. If there's an obvious pattern of issues by multiple people, more than likely it's on your end. We'll be discussing more on their customer service as well as people's horror stories in the next episode. Next, half-baked horse breeds, and oh boy, it's a doozy. Remember how I said earlier that the Fjords and Arabians had mixed feedback? Well, now I'm about to give you breeds that were even worse than that. First, the Knabstrupper. The main issue with them is their gaits being completely recycled from another Gen 3 horse, the Andalusian, and it's painfully obvious by looking at its rear. Not to mention the model itself was mediocre, but could have been better.
Animations, like bro, every single horse should have a different animation. Every single horse breed should have a different animation and like not copy paste them.
No horse on this whole wide world has the exact, and I mean the exact same gaits as another breed. They're all built a little differently, hence why they should have gaits that are a little bit more different.
Then, the curly horses. The curlies received mixed feedback regarding the coat textures, running like a pit bull in stereotypical dog antagonist movies, boogie gaits in the legs, and a dramatic slow rear, which is good for pictures, but for racing, when you run into something like a dumbass and you have to wait for the fucking rear to finish going through its motion. And yet somehow, SSO decided that, hey, we should turn this into a magical horse, which is actually a pretty cool magical horse, not gonna lie, but come on, this is a buggy ass breed.
The animations are very creepy. The leg looks like it's falling off when it's trotting. The horse is just freaking creepy again.
I like to put it out there that I do like both of these breeds, the Knabstrupper and the curly horses, depending on the coat colors, since especially on the curlies, the coat colors can make them look cute or look like they're on crack. However, even with the things you like, you gotta acknowledge the flaws. Next, the English Thoroughbred. When the trailer released, a lot of people were concerned with the gaits, lack of detail in coats, and the model itself. Thankfully, this was one of the breeds that managed to be fixed on time or after a huge uproar, since it then became one of the more successful horse breeds of SSO. Now, this next breed, I'm about to get heated because every time I think of this breed, it makes me honestly upset. So if it comes up as rude, I apologize. So bear in mind, this is coming from a place of disappointment. The Gen 3 Frisians. Now, compared to other breeds, this was the first time SSO showed a grayscale, and asked for feedback from the community. A lot of people suggested changes to the model, colors, and even editing the model to make it more accurate to an actual Frisian in real life. And what did SSO do? Not a damn thing. The trailer came out from the depths of hell. Girl, all hell broke loose! First off, the positives. I love the coat colors, the jump, even though it's too high on other objects. The eyes, and out of all the animations that I've liked, the stretch one is cute, or when they stand still. Now the part where I actually roast this damn breed. The gaze, especially that trot. Looks like they're about to break their kneecaps like an ACL tear in a basketball game. Man looking like dried up ramen noodles with putting gorilla glue like that one chick as jet. Oh, and sectioning it to 3 parts with the random little noodle from a burnt ramen noodle pack gone wrong, looking like some more prominent, especially its special main style, dear God. Tail shaped like a log in a Disney video game with the ends cut with the blunt scissors instead of an actual scissors, flinging like a noodle in the canter pirouette. Idle animations. Oh God, the idle animations. Smiles looking like they're trying to be in the next horror film or game of the year. Mouth looking like they're trying to fix their dislocated jaw. Shakes looking like a seizure in a PSA film. Tongue looks too thick, especially in the pinning animation that reminds of a perverted anime scene of a creepy dude trying to lick people. Rear makes the legs look like they dangle on the way down. Main animation with a visible wind from Narnia at random. And last but not least, the fucking hard stop, looking like they're trying to take a dump and then bark like a dog. Actually, every time I look at this breed, it looks like a dog. How can y'all fuck up a beloved dressage breed and a chunky boiled ass girl? Okay, now that I've calmed myself, to sum it up, the Frisians, in my opinion, are the worst Gen 3 breed ever done due to how broken this breed is.
In my opinion, it looks worse than it does in the trailer. Dude, what is wrong with this horse?
Got on the horse, and the first thing I notice is that we're actually not sitting on the horse, we're floating on it. We're not even touching the horse. Let's start with the walk. It's the first gate on the list, and it's questionable. It almost looks like the horse is in pain or the horse is trying to get over something. Can we just move on and not talk about it? It's just, what is that? Did it break its leg?
This hard stop? What? What is that? Okay, that has to be a glitch, right?
Now, what mind boggles me is the fact that after the obvious negative feedback, they didn't copy and paste these gates on the Finn horse, and also took the Jorvik wild horse's laid down move, but its legs are crumpled with its cut back strip hair and bending back legs like the Exorcist, and then they made a magic dragon Frisians, which is a shame, because the coats, even though their tails still make me think of them as lizards, are good. They're on a shitty model. Hell, even the Gen 1 and Gen 2 look better. And that's saying something. Now they actually get compared with the Percherons because unexpectedly, they're really good. Thank God, because I really love Percherons in real life as well as because, again, I love chunky boy breeds. And with the black Percheron in the special gate, it had people remind them of how the Frisian could have been, especially its eye animation wise due to looking graceful and elegant, which is what a lot of people hoped for with the Gen 3 Frisian. I get that some of y'all do like them, but be honest here, y'all. It could have been better if it wasn't rushed out just to make a quick buck for Christmas. Also, they're basically excusing it as Jorvik Frisians when it's very much still a Frisian, and it's not an excuse for these animations and horribly done model to be like this. I would have been fine with putting up with the model itself, but animations are a hell no to me. Now, there's been rumors and comments about them going to fix them, but I need to see it before I believe it, because I was honestly really excited about them, and it's a shame they got treated like this. Alright, next issue is the expensive in-game prices. A lot of the items and horses in this game are expensive. For example, your shillings on clothes have been ranging from 7.5k to 10k. What's that? You want to save more than 10k? Well, too bad, because that's the max cap. 10k Jorvik shillings. Isn't that great? Star coins on clothes are either over 160 star coins, and horses that are most expensive are 950 star coins with the lowest at 700 or 800 something, which you're basically paying $30 for a digital Gen 3 horse. The cheapest are ponies, and even then, they're 350 star coins, so if you don't want to buy star coins, you can save for them, right? Remember, when I talked about the imbalance of updates, each week you get 100 star coins, so it takes 10 weeks to have enough to get one horse that's a highly animated Gen 3.
Clothes in Star Stable are increasing in price. The prices are inflating. But what we earn in the game through star coins and through Jorvik shillings is not increasing to keep up with those rising prices, which sounds like real life, honestly. But, like, it shouldn't be that way. This is a game, guys.
You can try to save for permanent breeds, but nowadays with magical horses thrown in almost every month, it's impossible to actually save for a permanent horse breed. You need to only really buy limited edition breeds. But you don't have to buy every horse. Try to tell that to a kid who wants their parents to use their credit card to pay $60 to buy 2 horses. The thing is, people are always gonna want a lot of horses, especially if they're pretty and beautifully animated. Having to say you don't have to buy it isn't going to be a valid argument because the desire of wanting something is going to overcome that idea. Other people also prefer to collect every breed, so even if you try, I highly doubt you can get them to stop. Plus, we all know we don't gotta buy everything in their mama. A better way to combat this inflation is to raise the weekly star coin allowance and Jorvik shillings cap to match the prices. As the claims they can't do that, or some people claim they can't because of money. However, let me tell you something. SSO isn't an indie game company. It's a multi-millionaire company. And if you're wondering how much they make per year, as of 2020, they make $44 million per year.
Damn!
44 million. Do you really think they're struggling? Plus, I also think people forget that people are gonna always buy star coins and memberships, so regardless, they're not gonna lose their money. Finally, unnecessary functions and taking out of functions. SSO also has a really bad habit of putting in functions that are very unnecessary, or all of a sudden taking out of the function. For example, for functions they took out the auto slow of horses instead of making key binding options. Magic horses can't auto change anymore, and you can only use a button. Lastly, they took out the cold tolerance of Valley of the hidden dinos, which is what made cold tolerant breeds in Dino Valley very special. Some of these features gave a little bit of realism, and what I mean by that is, yes, they're a fantasy game, but there's gotta be some fantasy elements. For example, fire burns, water gets you wet, etc. Horses can get cold, and horses can run out of stamina. Now, I am aware they took out the auto slowdown for people that are disabled, but like I said, they should have just made an option when it comes to key bindings. As for unnecessary functions, we got a cosmetic update of the horse care system. Tired of dragging your care items to your horse? Now you can click them on the head. Oop, but you still gotta buy hay if you want to feed them some vitamin C. A mail button, a global store that's a good idea on paper, but has the same items in the standalone stores, an e-key that only opens or activates something you can't even use it to get through dialogue. Clubs with their own writing hall. Cute, but what's the point of the show club members only button in the writing hall now? And lastly, the update interface of the club menu to act as a budget Discord announcement tab, but takes up your whole screen and has you stop midway. This concludes the issues with the game. Now let's get into the bigger issues that need their own section. First, let's talk about... Oh god, no. Earlier, I talked about how some remodels were successful and some were unsuccessful. Well, we're going to talk about the very unsuccessful ones that happened this year, especially. First, let's look at areas. This year, Steve's Farm, Silverglade Village, the Riding Hall, and a Winter Village were updated. First, Silverglade Village. This remodel decided to compare to the previous ones that it started the trend of changing the layout in a shit ton of buildings. The village went from something small and unique to if Cape West Village and New Hillcrest had a baby. I do like some of the additions that they added, such as the swings, little paddocks, and some of the buildings such as the clock tower getting upgraded, but in all honesty, I would still pick the old one. Same goes for Steve's. Steve's was known in SSO as the biggest popular spot where people advertised their clubs or role plays due to how it was huge for a social spot with clubs lining up or friends just chatting away. Well, SSO decided to make the bitch a little more crowded, changing the paddock into 3 separate paddocks with no ability to use global chat since it's seen as an area that's not a city for some reason. Changed the color scheme to a stereotypical red barn instead of its yellow and green colors, and changed the race to feel long and cluttered. Steve's also now just feels like it's trying to copy another area in this game called Starshine Ranch, which both being very stereotypical barns you see in shows. Both of these areas are pretty, but they've lost their touch of uniqueness and familiarity. Now, when I think of remodeling areas, I'm thinking more of updating the textures with familiarity and thinking that, hey, this is still Silverglade Village, or hey, this is Steve's. Plus, I don't know about you, but since this is an MMO geared towards kids, even though it doesn't have a rating yet, people that have gotten older might have wanted to revisit their childhood again and get nostalgia. They pretty much completely destroyed it. These 2 remodels also affected the Silverglade Championship due to having random shit in nooks and crannies, making the championship more crowded to race on, just like Steve's race. In terms of nostalgia, all that's left is Dino Valley, Cape West Village, and Hollowwoods. Now, the next area that got remodeled kept the layout, but dear god, the textures. The Riding Hall, when it first released, looked like a stable you could make in Sims 3 from the crusty-ass red roof contrasting to the bright-as-hell white paint. A person also did a much better concept art of the Riding Hall and suggested changing the roof to a darker brown, which was something suggested by people in the community, or a dark green. It also looked out of place with no foliage, and the fact that because there's no detail, it looked like no shadows were added yet. Now the inside. Oh god, the inside. The windows are okay, except a little too blue in my opinion, and the lighting was okay, just kind of darkish and not really homey. On the show jumping side, the poor thing just looks bare. There wasn't any of the unique jumps, and this was just stuck with some Barbie horse adventure riding camp jumps with stereotypical green, blue, and yellow jumps with an occasional bush. It looks bare compared to the dressage side. Now the dressage side, oh god, that bitch got traumatized. It added some nice features for dressage clubs and people in general, with the closet, a chill area, hairstylists, and more camera angles to look at your routines. However, there was a huge issue with a fucking itty-bitty ass door you had to keep clicking to open. However, SSO did the #1 thing people in the SSO dressage community had asked for them to keep, which was the removal of their dressage lines. We'll be discussing this scandal a little more in depth, especially since SSO dressage is something, in my opinion, that deserves its own section in another episode. Basically, the purpose of the lines is how a lot of dressage clubs are able to do their moves and patterns and formations. The lines that SSO gave them were completely off from the original, which mainly affected the organization. Pretty much, they fucked up an important tool that helped the foundation of many dressage clubs as a form of art. After enough backlash, they were able to add more depth to the textures and give clubs better lines that can be turned on and off for those who wanted to keep the normal floor. Finally, the most recent remodel went the Winter Village. In my opinion, the older one was better because it had warm and fuzzy Christmas spirit feeling, and compared to this one, it just felt like I kept entering a funeral home. It had the lighting, which just felt dark, and it felt like enough aftermath of a fucking blizzard. The tree went from looking very lively to pretty to look at, but kind of dead with these random ass yarn ornaments and not much bright lights that could be found at your dollar store. The village also had less of its decorations removed just so that they don't relate to Christmas. Y'all, I'm gonna be very honest with you, it still looks Christmassy. If they wanted to be inclusive to those that don't celebrate Christmas, this would have been the lovely opportunity to add in traditions such as Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and other holidays that's celebrated during wintertime as an opportunity to teach people about different traditions around the world. The reason why there's people hating remodeled areas, while yes, nostalgia can be a part of the reason why people don't like them, however, the majority of the reasons for people not liking it is because textures look weird, don't like the layout, vibes don't feel the same, and or it don't like how it affected the other areas. The next part of remodels were the NPCs. Some NPCs turned out fine in design, such as James, Andy, Sonia, and Emma, and the Bobcat Girls, even though they made them stereotypically nice. However, some of the more main characters got butchered. First, let's look at the Soul Riders. Oh dear God. Now, the Soul Riders for the most part are still recognizable. However, if you look at Lisa, she's not the same as her character in Starshine Legacy. In Starshine Legacy, and even prior to the remodel in SSO, Lisa was the punk rock cool ass kid, and she was and still is my favorite. Well, SSO decided to fuck that up. We're gonna make her into a country boy I love you Visco girl to stick with the pop trend instead of being unique. People are upset with how Lisa turned out, but they were more tolerable. If you go back and look at her rescue mission quest of saving her, they changed the story completely. Lisa went from using a ball of star energy to launch the shit out of the Dark Riders into oblivion for jumping us to intimidating Sabine's funky ass and then her running away like a little baby. Speaking of the Dark Riders, let's talk about their damn remodel that we got this year. Out of all of the NPC remodels so far, this is the worst one. Let me tell you why. First, we're gonna talk about the saving grace of this whole squad, Kaja. Kaja was the only one that stayed true to at least having simulators to how she looked before, besides the random addition of the violin and her horse being changed from Stalker to Mortifa, who I do gotta admit, he's also the best looking Dark Rider horse as well, and the most badass one. Thank God her model is fine, because she's also my favorite Dark Rider. Just hope her character itself in writing isn't shit. Now, the shitty part.
Oh my God! Oh jeez, oh my God!
Sabine. Dear God, if this doesn't scream Fortnite crossed with Abby from Last of Us Part 2, I don't know what is with her licorice whip of a hair. Somehow she went from a rich, preppy bitch of an equestrian to motorcycle 30 to 50-year-old woman. On top of that, Khan has the Frisian model, and if this bitch has the same eye animations and everything, I'm not gonna take him seriously anymore. Also, the cringiest shit that I've seen from people that are simping over her is the mommy sorry shit. I'm sorry, y'all, but... Plus, here's the thing. In my opinion, she is crusty. Insert all the people that have fallen in love with her somehow trying to come kill my ass. Next, Jessica. Now here's old Jessica, and here's new Jessica. Two different people. Now, I also like to mention in the sneak peek of the 2020 article, they're using she/her pronoun. I just want to know where in their head they're like, so we're gonna fire Jessica and replace her with this random person named Jay. Here's the thing, even if you can give me a reason why she's all of a sudden called Jay, I will still call her Jessica, because literally since childhood from SSO and Starshine Legacy, she is fucking Jessica.
These are characters they grew up with. It would be like turning turning Superman into a woman who calls herself OMG girl. All the reasons why we cared about them or connected with them in the first place is gone.
And with this change, they've broken the lore of not just the games but the books. Because even Jessica in the fucking books are still called Jessica. The only thing she has left that's recognizable is somehow her color palette. Her new horse is basically from the looks of a white Ferrari with a plastic black Barbie mane. And then finally, this bitch of a fourth rider that we've been wanting to know who it is for so long. A fucking kid. Now, here's the thing. This kind of trope can be cool, but in my opinion, a kid that looks like the villain from Barbie the Secret Door, you're telling me the fourth rider went from someone named Elise/Nahili to an annoying kid you would fight in the early stages of Pokemon named Chio. Lord have mercy. Chio also has the least intimidating villain character I have ever seen, and oh, where's the horse she has? Oh, it's a fucking stick horse. Now they're gonna probably do it's a transformative horse thing, but even then, it's really underwhelming to wait for the final Dark Rider that's been dragged on as a powerful evil being, to then having to drop kick a fucking elementary school kid.
I thought Sabine was bad, but never in my wildest dreams would I think that the fourth Dark Rider was a colorful child with a toy horse. It's not even the name that we got initially for her.
Visual recognition for older players and those who read the books is a thing. These are good character designs. These designs are fine. They are eye-catching. They are colorful. They have different sizes and shapes. The only one that can remotely stay is Katya, who is reminding me of the one girl from the Umbrella Academy, and she does invoke her old character, sorta. The rest do not fit these particular characters. The reactions I've seen range from "I love it" to "I can't take these circus clowns seriously." And it's really hard for me to believe when Game Master Ylva says the Dark Riders are her favorite characters, when she and the team decide to pretty much change everything about them. The constant change of story and lore and character designs are driving people away.
So to understand further how people got upset at Lisa and the Dark Riders is because this is an example of trying to shove other characteristics onto already existing characters. With looking at Dark Riders, besides Kaja, they're all examples as well as Lisa being shoved with the stereotypical appearances and traits onto existing ones. For example, Sabine has a stereotypical muscular woman appearance, which, by the way, this is not because she's muscular. It's the fact that based on her lore and character design prior, she does not scream someone that would bench press 100 times a day. In my opinion, if they wanted a more diverse character set of different sexualities, tropes, races, etc., they should have made these as new characters instead of shoving them onto characters that already existed. Now, I already know someone's about to drop the Alex and Maya are gay together, but here's the thing. Those two were buildable characters, meaning it was buildable enough to have character development with each other and themselves. While I think their development still lacks in actual relationships and actually trying to show it and building up to how they begin together, in my opinion, when it comes to their diversity characters, they really lack in that category, which segues into my next point of this video. When it comes to this day and age, there's more voices speaking up for the need for diversity in things such as movies, shows, social media, video games, etc. Now, for the newer people who have no idea about SSO, if it wasn't painfully obvious, you can only play as a girl. The purpose being was because SSO wanted the game to be a chance for women to be empowered. So now I'm gonna talk about how this way of thinking is very flawed. Now, by using my college education from when I took a class in freshman year on women's gender studies, SSO is what I like to call a game that is in the category of using bad feminism. By definition, feminism, and I quote, is the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of equality of the sexes, meaning we need women's rights, yes, but we still need to be equal with all genders overall, because there's gotta be a balance. Now, to just plug in here real quick, if any of this is interesting you, I highly recommend that if you're in college right now, is to try this course, or if you're not, I recommend just heavily doing more research on this to formulate your own opinion on this. Plus, I feel like the kind of feminism we see see, especially on social media, is very extreme in certain beliefs, so for the sake of this video, I will be mentioning some things that relate to what I'm talking about, but bear in mind, I once again recommend you to either learn more with research or take a class on it. Bad feminism was mentioned in an article I got to read by Roxanne Gay called The Bad Feminist. To sum up what the article talked about, it discussed tensions and negative connotations that can lead to a more damaging version of feminism built on social concept, meaning that there's a right and wrong way to be a feminist, leading to discussing the nature and typical stereotypes about it. For example, Gay herself resisted feminism because of the tendency to look over people of color. Also, another thing is, people have also told others that men don't get oppressed. Here's the thing, you're forgetting about the fact that men can still be oppressed due to sexuality, race, mental health, religion, and other beliefs that still happen today. Now, to further apply this to SSO with the characters, Abigail Pinehaven, a YouTuber, did an Instagram reel making a point on the need for diversity in our character creation in a very artistic format.
Marceline, is it just you and me in the wreckage of the world? That must be so confusing for a little girl.
Other people also discuss the need for height, more skin tones, more different hairstyles, and of course, more genders. Now, the reason why there's people that have an issue with people wanting boys in the game is the following. They'll either cause relationships, the story is not doable enough to do it, fear that it will take away from women empowerment, it will take too much work, there's no other games with female pro tags, and with the saying that it's a girl game. These issues then lead to boys and other genders that play the game get mistreated because of their gender, ranging from typical hate comments of a YouTuber to people shutting down others for wanting to be a boy to even clubs being discriminatory, offensive, or even straight up kick them out. Let's have a little discussion on why these arguments are not reasonable. First off, they'll cause relationships. I hate to break it to y'all, but there's already player relationships happening, both naturally formed and inappropriate child predatory behavior. This is a thing that happens in a lot of children MMOs and even adult ones. I even seen relationships that happen in previous clubs that I've been in, so this is all a part of things you're gonna see in the MMO world. Also, putting two separate genders in a room doesn't mean they're gonna fucking have sex. Both boys and girls can be inappropriate. To say boys gonna cause that more isn't realistic.
We still get people on Global asking for a boyfriend or looking to marry. Sure, I understand that some children and teens will begin to do this more if boys are added. However, let's not forget it's not actually allowed, even now. Star Stable have moderators on chat, making sure this kind of thing doesn't happen. ROM RPs are banned and chat filters censors words that could be classed as inappropriate. Yes, sometimes these things will slip through and become a problem, like lag cheating or glitching. Star Stable is a child-friendly game at heart, and it would still be that way if boys were added.
Next, the story's not doable. People constantly say it's about a girl, when the story is really about banding together with the Soul Riders and defeating Garnock and the Dark Lord. In my opinion, even though they constantly claim it's about a girl, when it comes to talking about MMOs especially, you're talking about what players are doing, and since this is a horse magical adventure, it's not limited to horses. But it's a sisterhood! Buddy, there can be a quick change to just calling it the Soul Riders because it's already being called like that as well. It's not gonna take the sister out of the hood. Then it would take away women empowerment. In my opinion, with having both genders, they can still be able to teach others about women empowerment. Look at Elysian Online, which is another horse MMO that actually has a boy and girl option, and they celebrated Women's Day. Did they have to do one gender to do it? No. If we also look at the fact that SSL also is advocating for the LGBTQIA+ community, they're not really being diverse and inclusive if they only look at sexualities that women can be and throwing in a few NPCs that can come out as something that's not straight. Even Stacey Plays the GEO said that it would further hammer diversity in the main quest article. We're not in an age anymore where we need to have one gender in MMOs to say that girls play video games. It's just not realistic, and the reason why I think they're still in this old way of thinking is due to having to do it for so long despite the world changing. We especially look at video games new and old evolving to becoming more diverse than what they were in the past. Plus, if I'm gonna be honest, even though SSO is supposed to be the best horse game in the world, it's not in the leaps of being in the bigger game communities. I'm talking about being on the levels of Fortnite, Guild Wars 2, Black Desert Online, etc. I think it's just going to hurt them in the long run, especially when it comes to boasting about diversity and inclusion in your numbers. Next, it takes too much work and the story's not doable. Y'all besides making a male model, all they gotta do is change the pronouns. If they can change their pronouns from she/her to they/them in the new story quest, they can sure as hell let us pick pronouns including male ones. And like I said, they can still be called the Soul Riders. People think that because we're in a reincarnation of Aiden, a female goddess, is not doable. I hate to break it to you, but it can actually be possible for a female goddess to reincarnate into a male, and it's actually prevalent with Hindu mythology due to the theme of transsexualism. In my opinion, the story will be fine because nothing would happen if our character was a boy. Next, there's no girl protagonist games. Oh, really? Hey Jerry, cue the lineup of video games with girl characters and a girl protag. Now, if you paid attention, I've thrown in horse games that have already established a female protagonist, aka even in SSO's own Starshine Legacy games. A lot of horse games give you the option to be a girl. Most of the time, it's a set character or you customize a girl. Very rarely do you get to play horse games like My Riding Stables, the old version, not that fucking PS4 Nintendo Switch version, Secret of the Magic Crystals, Wild Shade, Elysia Online, and the others that acknowledge the fact that dudes can play horse games. I also want to say here that the reason why you see protagonists like Red Dead's Arthur Morgan, Sora from Kingdom Hearts, Joker from Persona 5, and more is because those are single-player games or single-player portions of games, meaning you're playing through the eyes of a character like a movie and helping them make their decisions. MMOs, you're playing as yourself. Yes, you get a set background, but you're creating and playing yourself. Genshin Impact is an example of a set character choices, but can still be a boy or a girl. Black Desert Online is an example of gender-locked classes, but the story is still the same, and multiple classes still give equal options for both boys and girls to play. SSO is the only MMO that's doing this gender limit shift. In other words, if SSO wanted it to be about a girl, they should have made this a single-player PC game. But since it's an MMO, they need to look at the fact that this kind of mentality isn't going to work with the world we have today with wanting more diversity and inclusion as individuals to feel heard. Now, the final argument, it's a girl game. Here's the thing. Once again, games are not limited to genders. In SSO's case, I have to be honest, but I feel like they don't acknowledge the parts of their player base that are genders not a girl. And it heavily shows in this post, and oh boy.
They said making a game for girls was a mad idea. We said being a girl in a male-dominated world, that's a mad idea.
Saying things like this is gonna hurt your community because you're unaware that other people besides your target group play this game. Understand the actions like this are due to wanting to advocate your message, but you're gonna hurt players in the long run by feeding into this typical stereotype of horse games only being for girls. It further shows this because, funny enough, Matt Harnacke, a male equestrian YouTuber, reacted to this game before getting a sponsor and discussed how he felt when he could only play as a girl.
Okay, I've got all these different name types, that's fine, but I want to be a man. How do I be a man? Okay, wait, I'm going way too ahead of myself. Okay, there's no way I think you can be a man, you have to be a girl. Why is it? I'm gonna move the microphone, guys, because you guys, my laptop is overheating and you guys are gonna start to hear that. But why is it that you make a game that is meant to be for everyone? It's meant to be a game just to... I mean, how difficult can it be to make a little icon of a guy? I mean, you can have like a lot less settings and stuff, that's fine, but at least have a guy included in the options. What are we all meant to do?
Then, firmer comments constantly went at him about it, leading to this comment that I find pretty interesting. And I have to agree, because the way to give equality is to give both genders equal ability, just like how I mentioned earlier that having equality in gender rights, based on our feminism definition, is there needs to be equality for both genders. But the quote saying we live in a male-dominated world, in my fair opinion, I think we live in a white male-dominated world. because of people of color are still getting mistreated, especially today. And to say that only women are affected is a very hypocritical statement with the idea of wanting diversity and inclusiveness.
I understand that boys are a minority in this community, but that doesn't mean they don't deserve the same right to look how they want to. Just because you may not want something doesn't mean somebody else won't want it either.
When I was 10 9 years ago, I didn't look at this game as, oh, I can play as a girl. I looked at this as a horse game with an amazing story and horses being my favorite animal. What drove me to play wasn't what gender it was what's in the game as a whole. Our final part we're going to talk about today is how in-game events have been treated over the years. I've already stated how this year's Christmas and Halloween events were the buggiest I've ever seen. Now let's talk about how events contribute to the lack of in-game content. First off, events in SSO used to actually be fun, engaging, and have variety. SSO consists of recycled shit or rarely adds something minor. SSO also took out the following events: Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, Easter, and temporarily due to saying they were going to focus on doing more shit is April Fools. Everything else, these events were something that people have done for years that at least gave us something to do, despite the bits of them being recycled. Also, the main reason so the events are more Jorvik themed, when literally we still got Halloween, Christmas, and Midsummer, which are in real life holidays. What's that? It's the Winter Village only. Buddy, they still got the Christmas decor as I stated earlier and remodels under a different name. What do you mean? Like I said, earlier with the Winter Village, they could have added in the chance to learn about other holidays, not being religious on Christmas and other shit. Also, why are we bringing religion in as an argument for holidays in a video game? I just find it even more hypocritical that they said we'll get some more content with the removal of these events when we barely got anything to do this year. The events are now just getting turned into shopping districts because of how SSO stretches an event out for multiple weeks to seem like it's a big event with stuff to do when really there's nothing to do. Literally the first week of the Winter Village was, oh, remodeled it and added the Yule tree and shops. What else can you do? They're besides doing pictures and roleplay. Nothing. They should have just prepared for events more, but nope. Money with horses are more important.
The Winter Festival is disappointing to say the least. The festival took 6 hours to update, and when it finally did open up, we found ourselves in a barren waste of nothing. And I'm not even talking about the Winter Village itself. There were no quests, no races, only horses waiting to be bought and shops waiting to be used. Of course they will have items available from the get-go.
I just want to know, does SSO think we're having fun in the game right now, or they just only care about pushing shit out? If they want to make events more worthwhile, they gotta have that drive. Nowadays, events are more grind-worthy instead of fun and worth the work. I'm not okay with grinding in games, but not when it's just an excuse to say we have something to do. Look at the wish system. Before the races finally showed up, there was barely any time to get warm wishes realistically. Hell, with the inflation in prices for things to get with wishes increased from 15 to 25 for clothes. If I had to say what years had the most fun events, would have to be Christmas 2019 and Halloween 2020. And that's because they both were different and they breathed life into the game for a while. 2020 Halloween was more memorable, especially with Yidris' takeover in Halloween, with Galloper Thompson, and the Yule Goats in Christmas 2019 were by far my favorite activity to do during Christmas because it had a worthwhile system. Even events from the older days of SSO were more memorable to the point that even players still miss those days. So to summarize everything, SSO is a game that has so much potential to go further, but is falling apart due to the issues that either go unfixed or are silent. We look at how SSO's evolution further promoted cracks of them falling apart and how the game is affected. The next episode we'll be looking at the company behind SSO and how their decisions affected everything in the long run. The leading question is, how did the game become in such a broken state that still has others under the influence that everything is okay? Sadly, nowadays when people hear a lot of things, they only chose to listen to certain things and believe in certain beliefs. If only there was an actual way to see why they only choose to believe in things they want to hear.
Has expressed little interest in making SSO the main product, the game, the MMO, a more engaging game, opting instead to focus on creating more horses which drive revenue.